In my last forecast, I looked at the weather up to today. So we're talking about lots of cold air affecting the United States, a decent amount of precip for the Northeast, and again, mostly just cold for regions here in the Midwest and the Northern Great Plains. Some thunderstorms in the Southeast before that went colder, and then also we looked at Alaska a little bit. So in this forecast, I'm going to be going 5 days out, because after 5 days, you very much lots of uncertainty, and do keep in mind, up to even 3 days, we're starting to get into a little bit of uncertainty, especially with the specific areas a forecast will be looking at. So in this video, we're going to be looking at weather for the Northeast, Midwest, Northern Great Plains, Southeast down here. Might take a look at Alaska. I will not be covering the western half of the United States over here. I just don't have enough expertise in that region yet, and I don't feel comfortable making a forecast on the main channel for that. Without further ado, let's get started with the most interesting weather is going to be here in the Midwest for now. So here's our initialization at 12Z. I'll move forward to wrap model 18Z just so you can see the very as current as we can get here. A very large scale trough centered basically right here over Ontario, and this was a big reason why we saw so much cold air advecting in. You can see the temperatures aloft are very cold, almost negative 45 degrees Celsius. That's incredible. The temperature gradient here, the wind gradient, very strong. Pressure gradient and temperature gradient, again, just extremely strong. So very strong flow aloft. Probably very similar thing at 250, yeah. You can see off of, can't really get far enough, but you can see very strong winds off the coast, western Atlantic way over here. So the reason that it's going to be interesting is because as this moves out, we're going to have a lot of interesting smaller scale features move into the United States. So I'm going to be looking at the GFS primarily during this forecast. Looking at the 12Z, 18Z is way too new. You can see here, the first thing we're going to see here is a shortwave trough. Even before this is a little bit of height rises for the Midwest. Not by much, but you can see our 500 millibar heights here in the 5300 range, and then in about a day you're reaching 5600. So you're getting a lot more stability in your region until this new low pressure begins to drop them again. And then again, a brief period of high pressure rises until you end up with more low pressure moving through. And after this, again, this is where uncertainty comes out. I'm going to be ending most of my forecast here at 120, just because after that we're getting way too uncertain. But yeah, so let's look at our surface for the Midwest first. So we looked at 500 millibars. We could see lots of height falls. At our initialization here, you can kind of see a kind of broad stationary front kind of setting in here. You have conflicting air masses kind of moving parallel to each other. That's pretty indicative of a stationary front. Again, you can see high pressure in the southeast is helping to fuel some warmer air, and it's conflicting pretty sharp temperature gradient right here. They're kind of conflicting with each other, so that is something to keep in mind. Let's move forward here. Let me actually look at my notes. Let's see, we had, yeah, obviously it's very cold, and a big thing is it's also very dry. So you can see our dew points are very low. But with this moisture return, that's where things start to get interesting. Is we have lots of southerly flow that's going to slowly push a little bit of a warm front. So that stationary front will become a warm front, especially considering that all this Arctic air is high pressure. This will also begin to help fuel some more of that warm air advection. Not to mention you have aiding with the 500 millibar flow. It's very southwesterly. 850, getting a lot of warm temperature advection. Let's get the temperature there. Lots of warm air advection over much of the Midwest. That is important to keep in mind. So regarding pressure at the surface as well, with this 500 millibar trough, we do have a lot of vorticity coming out of here. Pretty well seen. GFS shows it well. The NAM doesn't like making this trough super very well defined right now. Might just be this current run. Let's see if it gets improved upon a little bit. So the NAM is slowly leading towards a more well defined trough. The RAP has been showing that for a while. The GFS has also been showing that, and the Euro a little bit more on the NAM side, but the same thing, pretty well defined surface low right there. Let's go back to the GFS here. I'm gonna zoom into the Midwest sector as well, and you can see here, dew points. Gee, let me look at RAP model just because RAP is more short range. The sectors are honestly the most difficult part of this. You can see here's our low, lots of warm air advection, starting at this cold front, not super sharp temperature gradient, a little bit of a moisture gradient here, and you can see lifted indexes already starting to decrease, and you can see some instability already by Saturday. So I'm going to be looking out for thunderstorms in this area, specifically here in western Missouri. Again, shouldn't be severe in any regard. It's December and these temperatures are very low. Moisture's not amazing. However, there is some potential. If we look at this sounding real quick, a little bit of instability in here. Not really hitting 1,000. Very possible it will, but somewhere around 600 to 800 Cape looks about likely. You can see also a little bit of a hint to a slight warm nose at 850. So that is something to keep in mind. But thunderstorms do appear possible. The SPC did also note some potential for hail updrafts, but otherwise, nothing nothing enough for them to put any marginal risks out. But I'm just gonna say keep an eye out for severe weather. I will be looking at that myself. Again, warmer air will be coming to the Midwest. The name's not the greatest for this. We're gonna look at the GFS for this. Again, same thing here on Sunday. Some warmer air for much of this region here. Could be a little bit of relief considering how cold it currently is. So that's the main thing for the Midwest. And then right after that, we're going to see yet another trough moving through, a little larger in wavelength. Oops, went a little far there. Way too far. A little larger in wavelength. Again, vorticity, a little crazier through the GFS, but vorticity definitely maximizes over Illinois. Curious if the Euro, similar story for the European model as well. A little bit different looking at the troughs, but the ensemble GFS is definitely showing this as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, vorticity is important. That helps to fuel your cyclones. And we're getting a little more occluded cyclone in this case from the GFS, but warmer temperatures twice. And this here should have to do with more precip. So let's look at our GFS precipitation. You can see a pretty staunch increase on Monday night. Remember, a lot better moisture will be moving its way in. There should be a little bit of instability, albeit not much, but a little bit of instability helping out. Even some Texan instability there as well. But looks like moisture will increase. If you look at the end of period here, it's like total precip accumulation. The Midwest is definitely a region for precipitation to be coming. Definitely not in the next few hours, but with these two low pressure systems, they should both bring some precipitation. I did also want to mention for the first low pressure system over Iowa, especially, we're going to be keeping an eye out for freezing rain. The way freezing rain works is when you have um, precipitation that is falling. We'll take a sounding just so you can see this. Let's look at the RAP model for this again. Freezing rain accumulation, you can see them hinting towards quite a bit, but any freezing rain is very dangerous, especially for roadways. Let's take a sounding right here. And you can see this is also on the northern side, actually on the northeastern side of the low, right north of the warm front. So you can see on this sounding, you have freezing temperatures at the surface, but lots of warm air right above it. So that's going to lead to a lot of precipitation falling as rain, but then freezing as it hits the surface, or once it hits the surface. That's very important and definitely something to keep an eye out for. I believe the WPC does have a little bit of a risk for this. There's our time frame. So let me zoom in here. With pretty good chances, they're saying, of freezing rain, especially over Iowa. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. Again, freezing rain is very dangerous for roadways, and just keep an eye out for freezing rain that day. Right in this region over Iowa. And RAP model does show, I think, almost up to an inch accumulation. No, over an inch actually. Over an inch accumulation right in this bullseye, but over Iowa as a whole, that is something to be looking out for. Other than that, again, main thing is gonna be warmer for the next few days. You're gonna get some warmer spells. It won't be Arctic air anymore, which will be a relief for many. And warmer air advecting region, and both of these lows should bring quite a bit of precip. And there also is some potential currently for some lake effect snow. So if we go back to the very beginning here, some potential, but the dew point, the moisture over the lakes is kind of gone considering all this Arctic air. So I wouldn't put much emphasis on snowfall at the moment. But after these lows pass, there always is that some sort of potential for like snow here. That's probably our main time. Yeah, some sense of lake effect snow. For the rest of the region, though, lake effect or snow as a whole does not look to be very likely, just because these lows will be bringing a lot of warm Gulf air up here. and just lots of moisture and warmth is advecting to the region. But after those lows, you could see freezing temperatures return, possibly possibly bring you back to some snowfall. But looks like Arctic air will be going away for you in the Midwest. Now, speaking of Arctic air, a very good place to look is going to be the Northeast. So, in New York and New England here, actually, I can draw out the state boundaries here, but here's Pennsylvania, a little box shape. And then New York is right here, and you can imagine the rest. Here's the rest of New England, Massachusetts, Long Island, New Jersey, and not very well drawn, but that way you can get a little bit of sense of what we're seeing here. Um, but Arctic air is most certainly here right now. Looking at the RAP model, very cold temperatures tonight. It looks like wrong RAP 15Z. Very cold temperatures tonight and tomorrow for you guys. And one thing to mention is you will be seeing height rises again. So you're currently under a region of very intense cold low pressure, but this will be moving off to the east, and you're going to see some sense of height rise. So here's a 500 millibar level. Again, currently, if you just take somewhere in New York, 5,300 meters is your 500 millibar level. Then by end of the wrap period, so 18Z and Saturday, that's 1 p.m. Eastern time. They'll be more so under 5,600. So pretty big height rises in that case, just because of the intensity of that trough. This is going to lead to a pretty intense surface anticyclone over much of the region. So not super strong winds, but you will see remainder of that Arctic air for a little while there. And then, as we talked about with the troughs moving through over the Midwest, those will begin to move. Oops, wrong time frame. Those will begin to move up to the north, especially that second trough. So, first trough should help to bring a little bit of relief, helping push out some of that Arctic air over Ohio and inching into Pennsylvania there. And then that second trough we talked about, which was associated with more so the snow for the Midwest, will then move in over New England and New York and all that. The trough will be centered over Ontario, surface low again over Ontario, but moisture from the Atlantic and from the Gulf should help to mix together up here. And precipitation does not look to be extremely worrying. However, there is some potential for some heavier downfalls, and you will be seeing some pretty widespread precip over your whole region. I wouldn't expect too much winter, snowfall for a little while here. I'm gonna look at my notes again real quick. I was looking at potential lake effect snow as well for the beginning of the period, so let me go back there. Mention that. The very beginning of the period, yes, lots. There is still some moisture over the lakes at the moment, but this doesn't look to be likely to remain for too long. I believe the RAP model actually shows some potential for quite a bit of snowfall over New York. Yeah, especially right in that region. Time frames keep messing with me. Yeah, right here. For Friday morning, some potential for pretty intense lake effect snow. Lake Ontario, I believe it's Lake Ontario here, remains pretty moist for the time being. So that is where that snowfall will really be coming from. Yeah, you can see Lake Ontario remains pretty warm for a majority of that time. And a lot of your wind is directly from the lake there, so directly westerlies right there. That could really help to aid in lake effect snowfall right there. I believe that's the Buffalo region, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And then after all that Arctic air for that day, you'll begin to see temperatures should begin to increase eventually, especially if you're more to the west. Um, and again, precip is mostly at the end of that period. GFS will let us move forward more time. All the new new models are coming in right now. The GFS is showing a lot more precip coming in Monday, Tuesday as well here. And there's that big old trough up, not really big old trough, but that pretty strong surface cyclone up here in Ontario. Very occluded, but a lot of that more warm, moist air will begin to fall over your region. So, not much else for the Northeast. Nothing too specific to look at, but you will be seeing your Arctic air moving out pretty soon. Keep an eye out if you're right next to the lake, just because there is still some moisture over Lake Ontario, especially some over Lake Erie, but Lake Ontario is much longer, so that could help with lake effect snowfall. And then Monday, Tuesday, expect some amount of precip for your area. Again, not anything flash flooding, but some pretty big general amount of precipitation over your. Next, we're gonna look at the southeast as well here, and back to the beginning of the period. At the moment, pretty pretty low pressure for you guys, especially for this time of year. And you're going to see some, again, like much of the other regions, you're going to see some sense of height rises, but not nearly as extreme as much of the other regions of the United States. We talk about the Midwest and Northeast up there. And this will lead to pretty constant temperatures actually for the next few days until that first cyclone we talked about, which might bring some. I believe that was the freezing rain cyclone over here. That will help to bring warmer temperatures. So, again, looking at Georgia specifically, you can see pretty cold at initialization for the GFS, the RAT model as well. If we check, here's our initialization for 21Z. Again, warmth, we're only about 50s over much of this region, which is colder, I believe, for this time of year, especially. Let's actually check the GFS temperature anomalies just to make sure. Let's see here. Could have that. Might be wrong. Let's see. There it is. Temperature anomalies. Yeah, a little bit colder. Not by not by much, but a little bit colder for today, rest of today and tomorrow, until you get that surface cyclone that really begins to form, and that should really help with that moist air advection. Back to 12Z again, just because this is the full run. Um, Not much really else for you guys besides it's gonna be cold for today, tomorrow. Again, pretty boring weather for the most part. You're gonna get moisture return and warmth return on Monday and Tuesday. There shouldn't be a big old cold spell coming through. Might take a little bit longer for regions in the eastern half to recover, just because of that. They're closer to all that Arctic air that has been infecting the United States for so long. But yeah, in southeast, you can see here that cold remains for a while. But once that surface cyclone begins to form, get a little bit more southerly components out of your winds. Especially regions in the west will begin to warm up quicker. Warmer Atlantic air will begin to move in, and you will see warmth returning Monday, Tuesday. Precipitation wise, I don't believe there's much to be had. Those surface cyclones that are going on for the Midwest might bring some precip to regions, Arkansas. You might get some orographic lifting to help with precip on the western Appalachians, but other than that, should be pretty constant weather besides the temperature changes going on. So yeah, I'd like to look at Alaska again, just because Alaska is a little bit of a forecasting challenge, as well as the fact that it's just good experience and they have different weather, so it's actually pretty interesting to look at. Um, I've drawn out the continent as well as I can in blue here, so we're actually looking over the Pacific sector right now. Hawaii is actually right here. You can see the United States over here. So again, here's our 500 millibar map for the GFS. I'm going to try to keep up this little outline for a little while, just so you guys can see where we're looking at. Um, yeah, so this should show pretty well what we're looking at. So one of the notes I wanted to look at here is we actually have a pretty strong high pressure ridge over, I believe it's around 20 degrees north. But you can see at 250 especially here. Very strong, I moved over a little bit. Very strong high pressure ridge here, and this is leading to a very strong jet stream right there. Look at that. Very strong winds, 250 millibars. 500 millibars show something very similar. This is going to be moving into place over the weekend. This should begin to really strengthen. This will help to lead to a lot of stronger cyclones actually forming. The Coriolis effect takes place more when you're at higher latitudes. So up here we're at higher latitudes, and when you have faster winds. So we're seeing very quickly lots of divergence once you move past this high pressure ridge here, and you can see it Conte by the clockwise flow and just the higher heights here, 5,900 meters right there compared to down over here. That's 1,000 less. So very sharp, not super sharp, but there's definitely this pressure gradient here. And this will just lead to lots of low pressure systems. How that affects Alaska, we're looking at right now. So what I want to look at first, though, is just what we're going to be seeing for Alaska and just the northern Pacific as a whole. It's going to be a lot of strong flow and most likely a lot of actually southerly flow. Lots of these systems will immediately begin to move off to the north because of Coriolis. This becomes very occluded very fast. You can see this system again. It occludes off to the north very quickly. Lots of northern flow. You can see a lot of 500 millibars, just lots of northern flow, especially along the Aleutian Islands here. And then some of that begins to move into the southern Alaska region. Again, we're at 120 here, so I don't want to go too much further than this. But again, lots of southerly flow here. Winds moving to the north, and that will help to probably aid in precipitation. We're going to look at that right now. Let's zoom into our Alaska sector. Here's Alaska. Again, I'll try to draw it out. I'm not the best at doing this because even I have some tricky. I'm a little difficult at finding Alaska on here. Here we go. Aleutian Islands there. Just a general overview. There's Alaska and there's the rest of Canada up there. Oopsie. Do that. So let's look at vorticity. You can see here lots of vorticity, especially regions here. More vorticity moving in once more cyclones move in. And really, a lot of this is just characterized by, again, southerly flow moving right onto the coast. The coast is cold, sharper moisture gradients, sharper temperature gradients. It's very similar to our last forecast where you're going to see a lot of precip coming your way. And GFS model here, not nearly as intense as we saw earlier on the last forecast. Winter wise, and lots of snow, not as intense as we saw. Again, I want to mention that. So on our last forecast, I believe we had 50 inches in 24 hours, which is an incredible amount of snowfall. I don't think we saw that come to fruition in real life. A little bit high, especially for just snowfall as a whole. We'd not see that completely come to fruition, which is a very good thing. But again, you will be seeing a lot of precip coming your way, especially right on the coast. I believe the wrap does not get up there. Excuse me. Sorry about that. By my sector again. The NAM will get up here, so let's look at what the NAM's looking at for precip. Let's give 24-hour precipitation. I believe the NAM showed a good amount of precipitation for these islands. I'm not aware of these names. I do apologize. Also, some precipitation over here in British Columbia. The NAM does show a good amount of precipitation in your coastline. The NAM nest might no, I don't know my sectors well enough. I do apologize. But a good amount of wintry precipitation hitting the coastlines. So that's the NAM showing. Again, lots of southerly flow is in your region, especially in these islands out here. Very intense cyclone that began to brew over there. Let's go back to our earlier run right now. Again, lots of flow. Some of it does seem to be moving parallel to the coast, though, which might help catch a break for precipitation. But really, your weather right now is going to be characterized by, if you're in the north, it's Arctic air. If you're near the coastline, it's a lot of cyclones. And the question is, will their winds be pointing towards your coast, like right here, or parallel, like this region right here? So that's what we're paying attention to. Again, precipitation does look likely. Luckily, not nearly as much as we saw last run. Excuse me, sorry about that. Last run. Um, yeah. So precip again, not super intense. Looks like the West Coast actually has some more intense precipitation there, but your weather is going to be characterized by a little bit warmer temperatures. Again, just from the ocean air. But do keep in mind precipitation might be moving in, might be pretty heavy. So just keep that in mind to look out for that. So I'm going to provide a general overview now of your weather. So first off, we looked at the Midwest. Midwest, you're going to see a lot of changes. So Arctic air is currently in place over really this whole area up here. You're even seeing a little bit of encroachment down here too. But pretty Arctic air at the moment. However, this is going to be changing pretty soon. We're going to start the western half, specifically the Midwest actually being first. So this region here will begin to see some relief pretty soon. You have two low pressure systems that will be moving in, one from right here, and likely another one from pretty similar spot, pretty occluded low up here. That could bring some warmer air in this general vicinity. So this region is going to see relief pretty soon in the next day or two. Regions in the north a little bit after that, just because of being closer to the Arctic air. Northeast as well. You'll see some possibilities for some lake effect snow for a little while, especially in this region right here. But after that, a very similar story. You're going to see some precipitation on your way. Midwest will be seeing a lot heavier precipitation, and in particular, I did want to look at Iowa. Again, keep an eye out for freezing rain if you're in Iowa, because that is a very dangerous type of precipitation, and it does look likely to be on your way. So do keep an eye out for that. Regarding the southeast, again, we're going to see warming temperatures. Definitely some potential for thunderstorms in this region, but nothing severe. I am keeping a little bit of an eye out for some severe storms in western Missouri. If you're looking at the very, very southeast, the deep south down here, lower temperatures will, excuse me, lower temperatures will remain in place over Georgia, Carolinas, northern Florida for a little while here. The western half, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, will begin to see some relief. And then in Florida is always warm, so we don't worry about that. And then the next day, we should see Georgia and this region start to recover as well. So that's going to be Saturday, Sunday over the weekend. You're going to see that recovery pretty soon. Saturday and Sunday, especially for the eastern states here. And lastly, I also looked at Alaska. Um, Again, I'm even on the snowfall right now. You're going to see some snowfall on your coastline, precipitation also, but it looks like a lot of your wind vectors are actually not going to be pointing at the coast. But it's definitely something to keep an eye out because of the intense amount of cyclones that will be coming on your coastline. So things could change pretty rapidly. Do keep that in mind. But again, your weather is mostly going to be characterized by if you live near the coastline. Expect some amount of precip. Um, Definitely maybe some more rainfall on these islands over here. Some more snowfall in this region. And other than that, that's the majority of this forecast. So if you've watched to now, thank you for watching. If you like this sort of video, please let me know. I like feedback and it's very appreciated. And if you want to see more of this video, just let me know in the comments or by liking the video, watching it through. Everything helps me. So with that, I just want to say thank you for watching. Stay safe out there and have a good one.